Oh hey, didn't see you there. Good news, I no longer have to worry about getting into a fight. See, the only way to fight nowadays is being in an arena and outside. And, well, I'm inside and I'm not seeing a catchy one-liner. Alright, let's do this. Wait. Anime video games, you've heard of them, and I have too many of them. This isn't a news topic for me, so the background isn't as needed, but anime video games have been a practice since the NES, maybe even earlier. But it's still something very often done to this day and age, but they kind of follow a trend when it comes to licensed anime games. They are either anime arena fighters or they're not, so since I talked about the first category, let's talk about the not. Finally, I've been waiting for an excuse to talk about tying my shoes. Licensed anime games are a fantastic way to add depth to a series that it is, well, being a game of. It can add lore or details that would have had a hard time knowing about without playing a game, or maybe it can add characters into scenarios they wouldn't normally be put into. Or it can be a great way to relive the story of an anime, making you go from an outside observer to the events to literally participating. It's going to be a little bit harder to compare these games because they are all very much different, so I'm not looking at things the same way I did for the anime arena fighters, so let's go into what exactly I'm looking for. I'm going over many anime game genres that, well, aren't fighting. Deploying this video is a step away from the overplayed genre, and I feel like that wouldn't be a big enough step, so I'm looking for, when it comes to rank, is the gameplay fun? Is the story good? Is it true to the source material? And I am fickle, so I'm putting a big fat etc. right here, because these are going to be hard to rank against each other, but I'm going to do it anyway. Now, I've handpicked a fine, broad selection of anime games for the sake of comparison. It was a rigorous process, fine-tuning how I would go about. There are a lot of anime games that are very different across many consoles, but I can only capture footage on the PS4 right now, so maybe in the future it will expand. Also, my opinion on these games do not at all reflect my opinion on the properties they are attached to. These are simply my opinions on the games from a series that I love and how I feel about the games as products of that series. The ranking is to compare the games and not the properties they're attached to. If I did that, then Garfield: A Tale of Two Kitties for Nintendo DS would rank the highest, and we all know that. It is no secret that I like Fairy Tail, either that or I spent 328 episodes of Scorn on my face. I just like junk food shonen, and it hit the spot, so when I heard that Fairy Tail was finally getting a full console game, I mean, all these arena fighters coming out, might as well add Fairy Tail to the list of it since it has so many characters and it can fit the formula perfectly. It's a grid turn-based RPG. Huh? Fairy Tail has been perfect for a video game for a really long time, but I feel like I am not alone in thinking that turn-based RPG was rather surprising. But hey, that's not a bad thing at all. It could be a great way to tell a story in a precise way. Is it possible to jinx yourself when you're talking about something that happened a year ago? The way the story is handled in the Fairy Tail game makes me wonder, who is this game for? It starts partway through the series around the time of the time skip for anyone familiar with the story, and it tells a very highlight reel version of the Grand Magic Games and Tartarus arcs. What I mean by that is, it skips multiple upon multiple fights, pretty much not even addressing them in this game's version of the story. Of course, they usually aren't of too much consequence, but still, one of my favorite fights in the series, Gray vs. Rufus, was just skipped with no mention, and it's disappointing. I can guess why they did it. Each and every model has to be made, and you would essentially be making a model for one turn-based fight and leaving. Hell, the reason why fighting games can include anyone and everyone is, it's a fighting game. You can unlock them and use them in your own time in the versus mode. On to some positives. Look just how damn good this game looks. Yeah, it's unfortunate that the story isn't being told well and it's skipping around a lot, but these models are amazing. The overall animation is nice as well. It's just a good looking game. And it's a very surface level joy I get from running around locations from the anime. I also think the gameplay is pretty solid. You get side missions to literally raise your guild rank and upgrade facilities, to travel around with a party of 5, and well, there's a grid. Here is combat. I think it's pretty well done. I wouldn't say it's challenging, but it's nice trying to sit and maximize the amount of damage that can be done on a turn. A lot of my issues involving Fairy Tail could have been solved with different choices. The game should have obviously started at the start of the series. It could have even ended at the place this game started to leave room for a second game. It wouldn't exactly fix the issues. I'm certain just as much content from the story, if not more, would have been probably cut. But at least people new to the series would have a reason to try it out. Or hell, you could have went with a whole new fresh story, because Lord knows Fairy Tail is open to filler content like that. So I get anything I want? Man, I wish I had more time. Wait. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot was actually the game I've always wanted from the Dragon Ball property. Don't get me wrong, I have a huge list of games from series that I absolutely adore. I'm terrified to know the amount of time I put in Xenoverse, and I am even more upset about the amount of money I put in it, but I've always wanted a Dragon Ball story to take its time telling the story of the series. Not just fight alien, okay now fight Frieza, hey Cell's here, all back to back. Yeah, it's a disaster, none of them RSVP'd and I don't have enough chairs for everyone, so some of them are gonna have to stand. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot makes the story of the series feel like it was built for video games, of course being developed by one of the kings of licensed anime games, CyberConnect 2, will do that for you. But the story just feels perfectly told. I mean, hell, when was the last time you actually felt like Raditz was a threat and not just a tutorial? This game has everything I remember Dragon Ball 4, down to the terms and conditions. Hey, did they just say they were taking my kidney? Scenes are recreated nearly perfectly, and even some iconic fillers handed to you. I did hear the game drops off a bit on the later half of the story, but I'm just really happy a game like this exists. The gameplay is kinda okay at best. It feels like they slapped different shaders from Xenoverse 2 on everything and called it a day. Random encounters like random robots or whatever's hanging around takes place then and there, but it still kinda feels like a fighting game. I don't have an issue with that per se, but a game made to feel like a fighting game, but without the consideration of possibly going up against players, just doesn't feel like it's play tested as thoroughly, so some characters are better to play than others. Honestly, I think it's great all things considered. Wish they remembered to include a Dollar General on Namek, but what are you gonna do? Better than the Fairy Tail game, so it goes above it. Hey, what do you get when you make a multiplayer game on an anime that doesn't have a lot of fans at the time? In the same year, one of the most popular anime properties ever makes a game in the same exact style. You get regret. That's what I got at least. Quartet Nights launched in 2018 on September 13th, and as a Black Clover fan back then, I was thrilled. I pre-ordered the game for the full $60, got the season pass, and the online servers were empty before I even finished the sentence. The online was fun, but isn't exactly a part of things now, so I gotta dock points for that. The single player offerings aren't too bad, but you can tell how much this game was banking on its online component. We get a somewhat interesting story about characters connected to one of the main characters, Yami, and his past, who also happens to disappear at the start of the story and comes back at the end. But once you're done with the story mode, you get to see what he was up to that entire time, on top of extra missions from the characters who weren't present too often in the story. Also, there are animated cutscenes and a banger main theme. Yep, that's all I have to say. No negatives or glaring issues I can talk about here. Nope, Black Clover game's good! 2 story modes with extra missions is a total runtime of about 3 hours, and missions don't particularly stand out. There are sometimes you're forced to play a version of one of the online game modes because the character just so happens to challenge you, and I like seeing Black Clover on the game case. I am happy this exists, but there are just too many whys I have to ask. Why a multiplayer focused game on a series not doing the hottest? Why not advertise it? Why charge full retail for when basically the main part of the game can no longer be enjoyed after people lose interest? I like the concept, but the execution doesn't work. And there are so many times this could have been stopped. Hey, I have an idea for a game. No. I love Black Clover to pieces. It's on my court record for a reason, but I can't even look at this game without the strong desire to cry at what could have been. There are dungeons in this world. This game could have been a dungeon crawler. I would have even took it with a dash of Xenoverse where you make your own Magic Knight, but we got what we got and I have beaten it like 3 times. That being said, even though my body wants to reject it, I have to put it under Fairy Tail. You know, most Dynasty Warrior, like, spin-off games kind of have, like, a gimmick associated with it. I wonder if Berserk has one. I guess we'll never know. Oh, huh. Berserk, one of the most beautiful and well-illustrated manga of all time, has spawned 2 anime and a mistake. Has impacted so many different mediums like inspiring Black Clover and being a huge influence on Dark Souls, which changed the gaming landscape for years, and the game is pressed square to blood. Berserk and Abandoned Hawk is a Dynasty Warriors game, actually referred to as a Musou game, and it's okay. I kinda enjoy repetition in games because it's nice to just relax, press a button, oh look, I'm a convicted felon. But to separate my preference and the quality of the game, it just doesn't look too good. I'm glad that it tells a lot of the story, even using animated clips from the Golden Age movies as cutscenes, which I am actually curious why it isn't done more often. But it's just fun, and you get to play as a lot of these characters for the first time ever, and they all do feel different. Like, my favorite characters to play as are Judo and Serpicchio for how fast they are, but I don't know, man. It's just press square to bonk and run over to the next section. Square to bonk? I thought it was square to blood. This game's controls are a nightmare. It's not that this type of game can't be interesting. Persona 5 Strikers fits this format into a dungeon design the series natively has, so I think this was mostly just a way to slap guts on something and assume Berserk fans would want it. I mean, they were right, because I have it. It goes in between Black Clover and Fairy Tail. There may not be too much to it, but I liked every bit of it. The if you die in the game, you die in real life thing is just like an anime thing. Like it's not gonna happen, right? Like, right? Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment is the start of the entire video game canon of the series, and I genuinely love it. See, a lot of anime games will either tell their own story for better or worse, or they will try to tell the story from the anime to different effects, but Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment does something a little bit different. It's the start to a complete different Sword Art Online timeline. In the original anime on 475, Kirito challenges the surprise main villain to a duel to let everyone out of the game early. And if you know the anime, you already know that he won and the events that happened after that. In the video game though, there is a glitch in the middle of the duel and there is no release of the players, making them go from 476 to 100, and honestly, I love that idea. It's a brand new experience for fans of the series with limitless potential. Now, context, Hollow Fragment was originally a PS Vita game, but the main game was just an upscaled version of a PSP game called Infinity Moment. And man, I've played a lot of PSP games, and this sure is one of them. All the environments are kinda just hallways, which I kinda don't have an issue with personally. Well, I just kept the PSP aspect in mind, but with this, they kinda add an entire other half of a game with a new girl called Philia. And the game really opens up here, and honestly the story gets pretty good until she follows the SAO flowchart. Well, she didn't die, so I guess she just falls in love with Kirito. There are loads of optional events with every single character and all the characters as a group. Different characters even have different endings based on the partner you bring into the final boss room, and this feels illegal. Like I mentioned before, this game kind of feels like a solo MMO. There's a town hub with a bunch of different instances, skills, weapon types. This game feels well thought out, but I wouldn't exactly call it the best game ever. Honestly, I would like to take the SAO game series as a topic by itself, so I think I'm going to cut this section short and just say, if you like the series, you'll like the game. It isn't the best written or best designed, but it does feel like the game that has by far the most love into it. I personally rank it at the top of these selected games. A lot of these games were interesting, but I do have a list of ideas that would improve them. You should give characters like unique interactions, you should give them like one ultimate attack or like one special move, let them transform, put them in an arena, make them fight. I feel like I've heard about this before.